With all the slams, Coco Gauff welcomes record Australian Open prize money, but Coco Gauff and Alexander Zverev discuss Australian Open prize money increases and ongoing player demands for greater revenue share. Two-time Grand Slam champion Coco Gauff has said that while record prize money at the upcoming Australian Open can be counted as progress, players would like it to be even more. Recommended stories. Last year, top men's and women's tennis players united to demand a larger share of tournament revenues from the 4 Grand Slams, along with contributions to welfare programs such as pensions. The players said that they also want to be consulted when any of the Grand Slams consider making changes that could affect them. The Australian Open pledged a 16% increase in the total prize purse to US $111.5 million, $75 million this year. The winners of the men's and women's singles at the first Grand Slam of the year will each take home US $4.15 million, up 19% from last year. With all the slams, Coco Gauff welcomes record Australian Open prize money, but the Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of the calendar year, has always been a stage of dazzling athleticism, unrelenting summer heat, and fresh hopes ignited under the Melbourne sun. But in 2026, something different is rising alongside the soaring serves and cross-court winners. A bold, principled conversation about fairness, value, and the future of tennis itself. At the heart of this conversation stands Coco Gauff, the 20-something American wunderkind whose rise in the sport has been as meteoric as it has been thoughtful. Gauff has won Grand Slams, earned millions, and captured hearts worldwide with her blend of grit and grace. Yet even as she prepares for another campaign down under, where the total prize money has been increased to a record $111.5 million Australian dollars, $74.7 million US dollars, she's clear that numbers alone don't tell the whole story. A record, but not a revelation. It would be easy, and perhaps understandable, for most athletes to simply celebrate the biggest prize pot in Australian Open history. After all, increases across the Grand Slams in recent years have been dramatic. Wimbledon, the French Open, and especially the US Open have all raised the stakes, with Flushing Meadows even surpassing the rest with a $90 million US dollar purse in 2025. But Gauff, along with fellow players like Aryna Sabalenka and Alexander Zverev, sees something deeper. Yes, the headline figure is bigger. Yes, champions will take home more money. Yes, early round payouts are healthier than ever. And yet, the athletes argue, the percentage of total tournament revenue shared with players still isn't where it should be. The percentage is still, of revenue comparison, not where we would like it, Gauff said ahead of the 2026 Australian Open. There are further conversations that have to be had, not just with the Australian Open but with all the slams. What's behind the numbers? To understand why players like Gauff are pushing back, even amid record payouts, it helps to look beyond the absolute dollar amounts and into the story of revenue distribution. Tennis, especially at the Grand Slam level, generates enormous income. Ticket sales, sponsorships, broadcast rights, and hospitality packages all funnel into the tournament's coffers. For Melbourne Park, estimates put the total revenue near 467 million Australian dollars, nearly $500 million. Yet, critics argue, the slice that goes directly into player compensation, particularly beyond the elite few, doesn't proportionally reflect that wealth. Lower-ranked professionals and qualifiers, who fight tooth and nail just to reach the second week of a major, often walk away with modest sums by comparison. Meanwhile, off-court costs like travel, coaching, and physio eat into their earnings. This is not just a matter of fairness. Players say it's a matter of sustainability for the sport's future. Player power and collective voice. Gauff's stance isn't isolated. In fact, a broad movement has been taking shape. Leading players pooled their voices last year, writing to the organizers of all 4 majors to demand a greater share of revenue and meaningful consultation on decisions that affect the tour, from scheduling to welfare contributions. This effort has aligned with advocacy groups like the Professional Tennis Players Association, which has even taken legal steps to push for better compensation and player conditions. Madison Keys, another prominent player, has championed the idea that investing more in athletes isn't just fair, it's essential for the sport's growth. What's striking about Gauff is that her advocacy flows naturally from her on-court philosophy: compete ferociously, but think critically. Winning titles is only part of what she cares about. Improving the ecosystem that shapes tennis is equally meaningful. Beyond money, a broader vision. Gauff and her peers also point out that increased prize money should tie in with other player needs, things like pensions, healthcare, and maternity provisions, measures that are common in other professional sports but lagging in tennis. And in her comments, Gauff makes something else clear: this isn't just about the top 10 or 20 players. The changes we are after would benefit the entire tennis ecosystem, she said, echoing a sentiment that resonates across locker rooms and players' lounges. The cultural side of progress. There's a fascinating layer to this debate that goes beyond economics. It's cultural. Tennis has long been a sport that prides itself on tradition, from pristine white attire at Wimbledon to revered championship trophies and legacy clubs. But this reverence for the past sometimes clashes with a world that's moving fast on issues like equity, worker voice, and collective bargaining. When players call for a larger share of revenue or a seat at the table in governance, it challenges centuries-old structures. It forces fans, administrators, and media alike to ask, what kind of sport do we want tennis to be in the 21st century? Gauff represents a new generation of athlete, one that blends elite performance with social awareness. She shines in her baseline rallies just as effectively as she does in spotlighting systemic issues. Her voice is part of a larger global trend: athletes who refuse to be seen as mere entertainers, but as stakeholders in the lifeblood of their profession. So, what's next? As the Australian Open gets underway, the conversation will continue. Matches will be won and lost under the blazing Melbourne sun. Fans will cheer for aces and gasp at long rallies. But off-court negotiations and discussions will also shape the narrative of the season. Will the Grand Slams move closer to a revenue share model that players feel reflects their contributions? Will structured welfare programs become a standard part of contracts? Will players earn greater influence in governance decisions? These are not simple questions, but they are being asked with unprecedented clarity. And at the center of it all stands figures like Coco Gauff, a champion who understands that progress isn't measured only in trophies, but in the conditions that make achievement possible for all. Closing reflection. With all the slams and all the applause, what Gauff and others are reminding the tennis world is this: progress is more than headlines and money totals. It's about fairness, sustainability, and opportunity. And if this movement leads to richer rewards for everyone who makes tennis possible, then perhaps the sport will truly be winning off the court just as much as on it.